That some life was brought to that is that mercifully both Kim and myself have agile face muscles, can do this. The reels are silent now, the tapes are sealed in a cold, dark room at Boston University, waiting for a century to pass. Each box is marked with one name, Roddy McDowall, actor, photographer, confidant. For decades, Hollywood adored him for his charm and politeness, but behind that gentle smile, he was keeping something extraordinary. Not a scandal, not a treasure, but a truth too dangerous to show. In his will, he ordered that no one could open his diaries or home films until the year 2098. Whatever lies inside those boxes could shatter everything we thought we knew about the golden age of Hollywood. He looked harmless, a small man with kind eyes and a calm voice, the boy who once stood beside Elizabeth Taylor and made audiences cry in How Green Was My Valley. But when the FBI burst through his door on December 18, 1974, even his closest friends had no idea why. They found over 1,000 tapes, hundreds of film reels, and photographs that had never been seen before. What they discovered wasn't just a man collecting memories, it was a secret history of Hollywood, raw, unfiltered, and real. Roddy McDowall's story began far from the bright lights of Los Angeles. He was born Roderick Andrew Anthony Jude McDowall on September 17, 1928 in the small town of Herne Hill, London. His mother, Wyford, had always dreamed of becoming an actress, but the dream slipped through her fingers, so she placed it on her son's shoulders. By 4, he was reciting poetry at contests, by 10, he was already appearing in films. The war changed everything. When German bombers turned London into fire, the McDowalls fled under Operation Pied Piper. They arrived in New York with $42 and nothing else. His father joined the Navy, his mother walked her son into agency after agency until Fox Studios noticed him. Hollywood fell in love instantly. His first American role came in 1941's Manhunt, where he played a boy helping a stranger escape the Nazis. A few months later, he starred in How Green Was My Valley. It won the Oscar for Best Picture, beating Citizen Kane. The boy from bombed-out London became America's newest obsession. At 13, he was the face of innocence. He worked constantly, earning thousands each week, money his mother carefully saved. But the fame came with a cost. While other boys played baseball, Roddy was memorizing lines, rehearsing tears, and smiling on cue. His childhood disappeared behind the camera. In the mid-1940s, he became Hollywood's most beloved young actor, My Friend Flicker, The Keys of the Kingdom, Molly and Me. Film after film built the image of the perfect boy, yet inside he was restless. The applause that once made him proud now made him uneasy. He could feel it. The audience didn't see him, they saw a character they wanted to believe in. He wanted to grow up, but Hollywood refused to let him. By the 1950s, the child star was gone, replaced by a man no one recognized. Roddy moved to Broadway, desperate to prove he could do more than smile. In Compulsion, he played a murderer, cold, detached, brilliant. Critics were stunned. This wasn't the sweet boy from the Horse movie, this was an actor. Then came Camelot in 1960 where he played Mordred, the bitter, illegitimate son of King Arthur. 8 shows a week, his voice filled the theater, singing about sin and virtue. He earned a Tony nomination and respect that had long been denied. But Hollywood wasn't done with him. In 1963, he appeared in Cleopatra, a film so massive it nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. He played Octavius, the future emperor, standing beside Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton as their forbidden romance spiraled into chaos. The set was drenched in scandal and excess. Taylor nearly died from pneumonia, and the film's cost soared to over $40 million. Through it all, Roddy stayed steady, watching, recording, absorbing. He was never the loudest voice in the room, but he was always the one who remembered everything. That same instinct led him to pick up a camera. In 1953, he began photographing his friends, not for fame, but for truth. His photos were different. They weren't polished studio portraits, they were quiet, candid, human. Judy Garland in tears between takes. Elizabeth Taylor laughing with no makeup. Montgomery Clift staring into the mirror, trying to smile again after his devastating car crash. Roddy saw beauty in vulnerability, and Hollywood trusted him with it. When he published Double Exposure in 1966, the world got a glimpse of his eye. It featured nearly 100 stars, each described not by journalists, but by fellow legends. It was intimate, poetic, and haunting. His Malibu home became something else entirely, a sanctuary. On weekends, the biggest stars in the world gathered there to escape the image machine. Paul Newman grilled burgers. Lauren Beale sunbathed topless. Rock Hudson laughed freely without fear of exposure. Roddy filmed everything with his 16mm camera. But those reels were never meant to be seen. They were his way of freezing time. He said once, "A photograph is proof that something happened." But in Hollywood, proof was dangerous. Behind his lens, he saw too much Judy Garland breaking down during rehearsals, the pills scattered on her vanity, Natalie Wood flirting with strangers while her marriage crumbled, the quiet pain behind the laughter at every party. Hollywood's glamour was a costume, and Roddy was the only one brave enough to take its measurements. Then came Planet of the Apes. Every morning, Roddy sat in a makeup chair for 3.5 hours. He transformed into Cornelius, the gentle chimpanzee archaeologist. It was grueling rubber, glue, prosthetics, but he endured it with grace. The film became a global sensation. Cornelius was his most famous role. But behind the scenes, he kept filming. He recorded the actors eating lunch in full ape masks, laughing between takes. To him, it wasn't just a movie. It was history being made, but history has a way of catching up. By 1974, Rod's collection had grown enormous. He owned hundreds of film prints, some of them studio originals. Many were rare, even lost. He believed he was saving them from destruction. Studios didn't care about preservation then. They threw old reels away. Roddy rescued them. But the government saw it differently. To them, it looked like theft. December 18, 1974. The morning sun had barely risen when the FBI arrived. Agents swarmed his home. Trucks lined the street. They confiscated 1,000 videotapes and 160 film reels, including Citizen Kane and Planet of the Apes. The value, over $5 million. Reporters called it the biggest film piracy bust in Hollywood history. The polite British actor was suddenly the face of a federal crime. He said little, only that he loved film and meant no harm. But soon, whispers began. To save himself, Roddy had given the FBI names, friends, collectors, people he'd known for years. Rock Hudson, Arthur Jacobs, Dick Martin. When the dust settled, the charges were dropped. No prison, no trial, but his reputation was scarred. Some never forgave him, others pied him. The truth was simpler and sadder. Roddy never wanted to betray anyone. He only wanted to protect what he loved most, cinema itself. As Hollywood moved into the 1980s, he found himself quietly fading. The roles grew smaller. He turned to television, voicing cartoons and hosting retrospectives. Then came Fright Night in 1985. He played Peter Vincent, a washed-up vampire hunter clinging to the past. The role mirrored his own fears, forgotten, aging, still performing for an audience that no longer cared. The film became a cult hit, and for a brief moment, the spotlight returned. He smiled again, but it was a different smile. Gentler, wiser, tinged with sadness. Behind the fame, There was another truth Roddy never spoke publicly. He was gay in a time when that meant exile. He loved deeply and quietly, especially Montgomery Cliff. Their affair started in the early 1950s, torrid, secretive. When Cliff broke it off, Roddy was heartbroken. He attempted to commit suicide, succeeded in surviving. They remained close until Cliff's death, bound together by pain and understanding. Publicly, Roddy never spoke of it, but his friends knew. His house became a haven for other actors in the closet. Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter, Anthony Perkins. At his parties, they could breathe without fear of exposure. He gave them what Hollywood could never give them, safety. He directed only one film, Tamlin, 1969, starring Ava Gardner. It was strange, poetic, replete with myth. The studio folded before it was released. The movie was hacked together, forgotten, and rechristened The Devil's Widow. Years later, Martin Scorsese restored it and called it a lost masterpiece. Roddy never lived to see that vindication. In the end, a man who'd spent his entire life chronicling others refused to chronicle himself. When he was diagnosed with cancer in 1998, he told no one outside of his small circle. Elizabeth Taylor visited him daily. They had known each other since childhood. The friendship had survived fame, marriages, scandals. During his last weeks, she sat beside his bed and read aloud from old scripts they had shared. October 3, 1998, Roddy McDowall died at his home in Los Angeles. He was 70. And then came the surprise. In his will, he bequeathed thousands of items, photographs, letters, diaries, and home movies to Boston University. But there was a stipulation. No one could open them for 100 years. Scholars were flabbergasted. What could be so incendiary that it required a century of silence? Some believed the diaries contained names, affairs, and confessions that could rewrite Hollywood history. Others said they contained letters about Rock Hudson's AIDS diagnosis or tapes of Judy Garland on her final breakdowns. A few whispered that Roddy had recorded secret conversations with Elizabeth Taylor about her marriages, her addictions, and the studio system that destroyed her. Whatever truth he captured, it remains locked away. Somewhere in those reels, he might have preserved the real faces of stars who spent their lives pretending. Not the flawless icons, but the fragile humans behind them. The irony is almost poetic. The boy who began as Hollywood's brightest light ended up preserving its shadows. His life was a contradiction, fame and secrecy, loyalty and betrayal, beauty and pain. He believed in the power of memory, even when it hurt. That's why he saved everything. He wanted future generations to see the truth, not the myth. Someday those boxes will open. The tapes will play. The reels will turn again. And the world will finally see what Roddy McDowall saw. Hollywood not as a dream but as a mirror. A reflection of its stars when they weren't acting, when they were just people, lonely, brilliant, flawed. Until then, the archive sleeps beneath layers of dust and time. Every canister, every envelope marked private holds a fragment of an era that tried so hard to hide its soul. And in the silence of that vault, one question lingers like a ghost. Did Roddy keep their secrets out of love, or because he knew that truth, once shown, can never be unseen? The camera fades on the locked door. The tag reads Roddy McDowall Estate. To be opened, 2098. Somewhere inside are the unseen faces of Hollywood. The laughter, the tears, the sins, the beauty, all captured by the man who never stopped watching. The final words echo softly like the end of a film reel spinning out. Roddy McDowall was more than an actor. He was the witness. And one day his truth will play at last. Long after the raid faded from the headlines, Roddy McDowall began to vanish. Deliberately, he stopped granting interviews except to a select few journalists he trusted. To the public, he remained the charming gentleman of Planet of the Apes, the witty presence on talk shows who could make Johnny Carson laugh with a single raised eyebrow. But behind that carefully maintained calm was a man who no longer trusted anyone fully. The betrayal had cut too deep, the price of truth too high. He had spent his life capturing other secrets. Now he realized he had become one himself. In the late 1970s, he withdrew into a rhythm that few ever witnessed. Acting became secondary. The dark room became his cathedral. Visitors who stepped into his home described the quiet hum of the enlarger, the chemical scent of developer and fixer, and hundreds of contact sheets hanging from lines like ghostly curtains. Each image was a confession, a moment stolen from a world that never allowed vulnerability. He kept his prints in handmade boxes labeled in neat handwriting: Liz, private; Monty, last session; Jack, after party; Marlon, off camera. These were not just photographs. They were fragments of a lost Hollywood no studio could ever recreate. Occasionally, someone would call to ask if he was still taking portraits.